grasslands or lush green or freezing cold forests. And of course, unlike lions that form prides, tigers live on their own. In fact, they are very territorial, and it's very rare that males will cross another boundary created by another's scent into their territory. In fact, the only time tigers interact is when they mate and produce offspring, or when they're clashing over territory. Tigers prefer to live on their own because it makes it easier for them to creep up on prey. However, injured or unskilled hunters will usually starve to death. Another thing about tigers that is very unusual for cats is how much they love water. Because tigers are among the big cats like the jaguar and the fishing cats that love water, where you typically think of cats disliking water, but tigers absolutely love water. I mean, it's where they can go to keep cool during the heat of the day, but it's also another deadly tool for them, which slows their prey's escape before they go in for the kill. As you can probably see here, there is a white tiger, but like with the white lions, that is not its own separate species. The white tiger is a variant of the Bengal or Siberian tiger. That is, of course, is created by a genetic disorder, which means they don't have the pigment that gives them the orange colour, and so they have that white colouring. In fact, white tigers were first recorded in the wild in, I think, about the 1940s, but they were hunted to extinction for their fur because it was so beautiful. There are white tigers in captivity, but unfortunately a lot of them are victims of inbreeding, which causes a lot of genetic disorders. But, I mean, while there hasn't been a white tiger recorded in the wild since the 1960s, I mean, I think that there might be some out there, but probably, like with the white lion, it only happens once or twice in a generation. And tigers are the largest of the big cats, and of course they prey on all kinds of things. In fact, their favourite prey are sambar deer, which are the largest deer in Asia, but also spotted deer, as well as wild boar, and water buffalo, which can be 2 times their weight. They will also eat monkeys, elephant calves, and even rhino calves, which is bloody amazing. Now, of course, tigers are, like all members of the cat family, have eyesight that's 6 times more powerful than humans, but also a very, very keen sense of smell and hearing. In fact, they can actually prepare for an attack well before any prey knows it's being watched. While a tiger's bright orange fur and black stripes might seem very obvious to a human, many animals in prey zone, like sambar deer, see the world in green, but animals like the rhino have very poor vision, and because they have a hard time distinguishing colours, the stripes of a tiger will blend in with tall grass and trees. And in fact, it's actually said that a tiger in an Indian forest, when the sunlight cuts down through the trees, that creates shards of bright and dark colours on the ground, a tiger can just disappear. So a tiger will creep up on its prey to probably no more than 10 metres, waiting on a process that can take well over an hour, well before any prey knows it's being watched, and waiting for the precise moment to attack. And once it's got close enough, the tiger will charge forward, but once the tiger attacks, it needs to try and end the battle as quickly as it can, because as the trade-off for being so muscular is that they don't have a lot of stamina, and a big male tiger could weigh 4 times more than me, and so they're too massive for a lengthy chase, and it needs to be over quickly. In fact, a tiger, when it's chasing after prey, can clear 6 meters with every stride. And of course, how it catches its prey is it will grab a hold of it with its enormous front legs, tackle it to the ground, and then go for the throat, and quite often it will suffocate its prey. But it has been proven that tigers have been known to occasionally punch right through the flesh of their prey's throat, and it's even said they have sensors along their mouths that can actually detect the pulse of their prey. So when you think about that, it's actually quite scary. But of course, if it's smaller prey, then a swipe from its forepaw should be enough to kill it outright, because a swipe from a tiger's forepaw can be 10 times more powerful than a human's punch. But of course, with larger prey, it usually will kill it with a bite to the throat. And of course, once the prey has been killed, it's time for the tiger to feed. The tiger will always begin with the animal's rump and can eat about 20 pounds of meat at the single sitting. Then, once it's had its fill, the tiger will hide the remains in foliage so that scavengers like vultures or wild dogs or even jackals can't get a free feed. The tiger will then rest within eye line of its kill to make sure no one else eats its prize. And it will then eat this meal for the next 2 to 3 days. Of course, when I said about tigers being the most respected predator in the world, that while many people feared a tiger for its ability to hunt man, others gave it a godly status, believing the tiger to protect entire countries, which I think is actually originated in Buddhism, but I'm not entirely sure. Unfortunately, tigers are hunted by no species except for man, and over the last 100 years, the tiger population has been destroyed from 100,000 to fewer than 3,000 left in the wild, putting them on the endangered species list. And of all the species of tiger, there's already been 3 that have been driven to extinction. Caspian, Balinese and Javan tigers have already gone extinct, while the Sumatran tiger is now only about 300 individuals left in the wild, and that one is teetering on the edge of extinction. And of course, people can spend many months looking for tigers, and it's never easy, and one of the main reasons for that is that they've just been hunted so excessively by human beings, and mainly down to because many countries in Asia, like Sumatra and India, the human population is expanding rapidly, and that's bringing them into conflict with tigers. But also, it's down to what makes them such a wonderful animal, because they've been hunted for their fur because it's so beautiful, but also because human beings want to take on their powers. So tigers are hunted for their bones and body parts to be used in traditional Chinese medicines, which do not work at all, and even used in a substance called tiger wine, which is absolutely vile. And it's meant now that tigers are in terrible trouble all over Asia. There's probably no fewer than 3,200 left in the wild. But there is hope. I mean, there's people building breeding populations in captivity, but also in the early 2000s, a BBC wildlife team that were led by the late Dr. Alan Rabinowitz actually built a tiger corridor from Southeast Asia right up across the Himalayas, because they found tigers living in the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan, even right up into the Himalayas, which is absolutely phenomenal, and it has helped increase the tiger population in the wild. So, with anti-poaching squads monitoring the tigers, as well as protection and building breeding populations in captivity, we could save this magnificent big cat from extinction. And here is the historical range of the tigers. And here was the Caspian, Javan and Balinese tigers range before they went extinct. But around about this way is the tiger corridor population that was built in the early 2000s. Of course, one of the best places to see tigers in the wild is here in India. I mean, there were talks about connecting the populations in India, but the only problem with that is there's so many people living in India. Of course, I've never seen tigers in the wild, but I have seen tigers up close in captivity, and they are some of the most magnificent animals on the planet. Now, a comparison between the cheetah and the tiger. Now, the cheetah is the fastest of the cats, but also the fastest land mammal. It has a small head, very lightweight skeleton with loose hip and shoulder joints and a flexible spine, so it can run very, very fast and a greater distance than most big cats. Whereas the bulk, power and muscularity of the tiger, combined with a very heavy skeleton, means that if the chase isn't over within about 300 metres or so, the tiger is going to have to give up. Now, this is the largest leopard on the planet. It is the Sri Lankan leopard. Sri Lankan leopards are found on the island of Sri Lanka, just off the south coast of India, and they are the largest leopards, but I will get to that bit later. Probably the best place to see these leopards is Yala National Park, which is the most famous national park in Sri Lanka, and it has a higher concentration of leopards there than anywhere else in the world. However, there's probably only just over 30 animals in the whole of the park, and it is still a leopard, so you're not always guaranteed to see one. Of course, like all leopards, they don't indulge in an all-out chase like a cheetah, so what they have to do is they have to creep to within no more than about 5 metres of their prey before they pounce, and they finish it off with a bite to the throat or the back of the neck. And of course, in Sri Lanka, the majority of the leopard's diet is made up of the spotted deer, which are the most common deer in that part of the world. But there have actually been they've actually been observed hunting fully grown water buffalo, and water buffalo are some of the largest members of the cow family, and they have the broadest horns. But in Sri Lanka, there have been documentations of adult leopards taking down fully grown water buffalo, which is absolutely phenomenal. But of course, leopards are also opportunistic, and they will hunt anything, be it furred or feathered, and quite often they will hunt birds like peafowl. And like all cats, apart from lions, they're solitary for much of their lives, with the exceptions of mothers and their cubs. But In most of Asia, leopards are outcompeted by tigers, but in Sri Lanka,